And if we could just please take our places, please. I'd like to start our meeting. 9:30. Thank you, everyone. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Operations and Monitoring Committee meeting of 7th of July. I would like to declare the meeting open and welcome everyone, including those online. Thank you for joining us today. We have apologies from Councillor Bentley and Councillor Hunt. Would someone like to move they be accepted? Councillor Donaldson, Councillor Gould, seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, Madam Chair, I declare interest in recommendation 1.
Thank you.
And I'll be part of the presenting team for that recommendation.
Thank you. All right, any urgent business? No, it can all be covered through the committee meeting. And could someone please confirm our minutes of the Operations and Monitoring Committee meeting of the 2nd of June? Thank you, Councillor Stewart. Seconded.
I'll second it, but we again have been missed out again.
Okay, so I'll just take your seconding motion and Mr. Waru, and then we will have you, so there's some corrections. What page, please? Oh, in your attendance.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. So okay. Apologies for that.
Sorry.
And you as well, Potoa. Okay. All right. Any other corrections of the minutes? All a true and correct record. Thank you, Councillor Stewart, for stepping in at late notice for me at that meeting. So I'll put the motion to the vote. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Now we have page 13, the report back on councillor attendance at conferences, and we've great pleasure in receiving Mayor Chadwick's report. So would you like to make, I'll just ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the report, and then I'll let you highlight. Moved Councillor Stewart, seconded Councillor Tapsell. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Would you like to highlight any points, Mayor Chadwick?
Thank you. This is just a pro forma report, but it raises an interesting issue we need to look at in the next triennial, because actually Council didn't fund anything here for me to go, nor for Councillor Maxwell to go. So we went at the invitation of this province. So I put the address in there, and you can see the sort of story that you tell about a tourism destination. The interesting thing was the memorandum of understanding that was negotiated, and this is challenging to do a memorandum when you're in another city, but I appreciated the help enormously of Minister Macleay, because I had to phone backwards and forwards while we were negotiating every evening. It is, in effect, if you look at the purpose on page 20, it's a goodwill memorandum, but there is concern with this 5th largest city in Jeonju, which is south or centre south in China, that people have difficulty getting visas. So we've got that work underway with Minister Todd, or Minister Macleay, and but the interesting point is point 3, and it's how we could work together to promote our unique tourism resources, especially the Māori culture. Now, it was that aspect that I was invited over on, the point of difference from other mayors of a destination that is seen as a tourist destination. They all pointed out, you know, their beautiful landscape, but the thing that they were more intrigued with about Rotorua was this very strong hospitality and manaakitanga, really since the pink and white terraces. And it now sort of becomes more clear when we went to visit the Shaolin Kung Fu temple, and you saw the number of children engaged in Kung Fu, and that we're working on this, you know, looking at what we could do for mixed martial arts in Rotorua. This could open an opportunity in the future there's no decision made, but Minister Peter Sharples opened the way here, and this work is carried on by Minister Flavell about what we could do about a cultural exchange for mixed martial arts. The time's not right, but it is something that Minister Flavell's interested in, and because he's picked this up. There's an amazing likeness to Shaolin Kung Fu with Māori taiaha and other arts there. So it's just something for an incoming council to look at. But it was interesting to negotiate an MOU without staff. So, you know, when you go on an international forum like this and knew this was coming, it was quite a feat to get it achieved. The issue of them asking us if we'd have a Rotorua garden in their economic zone is something that I've shared with the Chief Executive and for Grow Rotorua to look at, and the new economic CCO into the future. But it's a rapidly growing, massively growing city, and it's great to have that cultural link. That's what we really secured. And this adds weight to our trying to open up Rotorua to more international visits, and also Air New Zealand's response to flights. So it was great, open door.
Councillor Stewart?
Madam Chair, thank you for a comprehensive report, Mayor Chadwick. The sector in terms of mixed martial arts are quite excited by the contact that you have made, and you briefed me on, and the staff on, the opportunities here, not only for the cultural exchange but the sporting and recreation opportunities under the Memorandum of Understanding, and I'm delighted with that, and thank you. Is this the exchange that you went on when the boycott of the council meeting occurred? Is this the same time?
Exactly the same time, and our cultural ambassador was with me too. So it was, to me, very important business. It was positioning Rotorua into the south of China, and very, very important business. Kent?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to ask on what legal basis this council can actually contract to promote and increase the possibility of visa applications.
Can I answer that? Because that's exactly why I was working with the Minister Macleay. And the response to that is only one of you're really hand-holding with an economic arm of Jeonju City about the possibility of the New Zealand Immigration Service extending an outreach office into southern China. That's not a decision for me. That's why I was on negotiation, and Todd Macleay was aware of it.
But how can this council actually
You can't.
undertake to do that, which is what's happened here?
No, we haven't. No. We're only advocating. So the issues that they gave to me about their difficulty of coming, these are mixed tours of up to 30 that want to come here. Their difficulty is they have to negotiate with Beijing or Shanghai. They can't physically travel there. And so all I had to do was put that report back to Minister Macleay, who will go to the Minister of Immigration. In fact, since this, New Zealand has opened up online immigration for visas, and all I've done as part of this MOU is write back to Sun Rihua to let her know that now that capability is online. That was my only part. When you're away, Councillor Kent, as in an ambassadorial role, you do everything. You're like a one-armed paper hanger, and you pick up issues that you know where to signpost them to the right minister, or to our Grow Rotorua and Tourism CCO. So that's simply all you're doing, receiving their issues that could grow that capability and putting it to the right ministerial level. You're only an advocate. So I didn't say we'd manage that.
All right, I think that's a really good full explanation, and we really appreciate your overview. Mayor Chadwick. One more question and then I'd like to move on. Mr. Bisania Tuli.
Morena, Madam Chair, thank you. Thank you, Worship. I love that. I loved hearing that Māori culture is the attractor for China-Aotearoa relationship. Just wondering, was the Te Tātou partnership mentioned? And equally, how does Te Tātou get involved in this discussion before you leave?
This was something that we were invited by the embassy and also this group of that got all the mayors together from around the world. There were 57 mayors. So we were offered to have 2 people go, and it is logical because Councillor Maxwell is our cultural ambassador who's been at the heart of... In fact, people in Genjo knew him so well. It was amazing to me. I can't believe where that guy's walked. So he opened doors by being the cultural ambassador. So certainly going forward, the Te Tātou's view needs to go into our mix of how we do things differently here. They weren't interested in governance issues. It was merely about how do you promote a destination, people, and Trevor walked beside me there. So it was entirely appropriate. He is the cultural ambassador. Yeah.
Right. Were the issue, I know this might be a bit philosophical, but were the issues of human rights discussed? Because to know that Rotorua and China are talking, that's a great thing, but there are still larger issues that I think many in the community want to focus on too.
No discussion whatsoever. It was a pure, the mayor of Vienna was there, the mayor of Hamburg, and they were talking about their beautiful destinations. So I took images. I haven't put any of the images. My presentation was flooded with images of Crankworks, the mountain bikes, the lakes, the people, the culture. Perhaps Trevor can speak to that, but they were not at all focused on governance or human rights issues. It wasn't that forum. It was a mayors and tourism forum.
Thank you. I think we've had some good discussion and explanation, so thank you, Mayor Chadwick, and we'll just move on now to that. Recommendation 2, I'll just move this motion and then I'll ask JP to introduce the report, and then Councillor Donaldson is going to speak to the report, I understand. So could someone please move the report from Crankworks 2016 update be received? Moved by Councillor Sarank, seconded Councillor Sturt. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Good morning, JP.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, just this report, as you've signalled, will be introduced in more detail by Councillor Donaldson, or Deputy Mayor Donaldson, who will just take you through the details of this year's event. But the 2 things I'd just like to highlight that are detailed in the report is obviously the significant decrease in the underwrite provided for this year's event compared to last year's event, and obviously also from the APR report the significant increase in the economic impact or value to this community from this event. So the executive summary of the APR report is included as an attachment. It is a rather comprehensive document, 172 pages, so if councillors do want to see the full document, I can provide you with a copy. But I think the executive summary does provide all the detail you need. Obviously that is passed through to MB, so they can do their analysis as they are a key funder as well. And finally, councillors, I've just signalled under the discussion section the commitment that there was the intention that this event would move to a sustainable footing over time. So obviously there's some progress there in the decrease of the underwrite. I've highlighted some of the other external funders providing funding to the event. Now this is not a comprehensive list, and the Deputy Mayor will take you through in more detail the contributions from some of those other parties to the event. So I think on that basis it might be worth just handing across to the Deputy Mayor and his team at this stage.
We go there. Councillor Kent, I see you have your hand up. Did you have a question of JP before we... All right, I'll allow that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question was, what was the cost of this 172-page consultant's report, and who paid for it, and was it included in the 36,000 in the $39,000 underwrite, or is this additional?
I think Councillor Kent, we'll let Councillor Donaldson have his presentation, and I'm sure he's got all of those answers in there. So we'll let him do that, and then we'll let him answer your question through that process. Thank you. Good morning, Councillor Donaldson. And
Morning, Madam Chair. I'll introduce my right-hand man is
Thank you.
Ariki Tibble, who is the event manager for Crankworks. Also
morning.
like to introduce Malcolm Thomas up the back there, who's the Council Independent Director on the board, along with Arthur Clapp, who's the other Council Independent Director. I'm a director appointed by one of the other shareholders, Takarua Mutu, and I chair the board. And also for Crankworks 2016, I'm an associate sponsor, so I have to declare all of that. And in answer to Councillor Kent's question, the cost of the APR report was met out of the budgets of Mountain Bike Events Limited, so that was paid for. It's included in the in the summary. So we'll try and stick to a 10-minute presentation, if possible, Madam Chair. And just a short or a quick point on the report. The external funding on page 23 also included 150,000 from MBIE, and the final 50k was received this week. Once Ariki had got the APR report through to them. So this is just reminding us of the objectives of Mountain Bike Events Limited. It is a public-private partnership. It is not a CCO. Rotorua Lakes Council is a 49% shareholder, along with Ferry Springs Holdings Limited, which is the landowning arm of Skyline Enterprises, and Takarua Paurini Mutu, who's the other shareholder. Just regarding the vision there, I guess the point I'd make about that is this tilts towards the fact that, in fact, Crankworks is more a global media production. It just happens that it's a production relating to something we're really good at, is being a mountain biking destination. So these are the numbers, 2015 and 2016 at a high level. Points I'd like to make there is that MBIE and trust revenue for this year's budget, for the 2016 budget, was 124,000 less than we had to work with. Our expenses are up on 2015, and that is largely due to the fact that the event director, multi-day director Takmutu, took a salary this year, whereas he didn't in 2015, so he worked for free last year. And also we added another event to the calendar, the Deep Summer Photo Competition, and but that was fully funded by sponsors or associate sponsors. So I'll pass over now to Ariki, who will talk to the remaining slides.
Thanks, Dave. Morena koutou katoa. So I guess what I wanted to cover this morning was a bit of a cost-benefit outline. So what we've got on the slide up at the moment is an outline of the cost to council based upon the agreement that we had with the departments that we spoke to. So part of that is a 75k cash contribution, accounting support, consultation and advice with in-house members of the staff, and the media centre hosting. So that came about as a result of a number of sort of discussions where we spoke about the different elements of the event and where the opportunities were. The media centre, for instance, that was something that DR decided to take on board because of the opportunities that represented for them. As part of that agreement, we spoke with the council departments around the primary outcomes that we would be focusing on as a result of the event. So these are kind of the opportunities, the ancillary opportunities that come from hosting the event here in town. 3 primary outcomes. I'm going to try and speak to everything in threes, keep it nice and simple. Keep in mind that we have to dilute everything. There's so many amazing things about this event, and I'm really just trying to give you the tip of the iceberg here. 3 primary outcomes that we were focusing on, though. Opportunities for community engagement, putting Rotorua on the map as a genuine international mountain biking mecca, and then economic benefit and perception change domestically and internationally.
Madam Chair, if I could just add there, I've asked Ariki to quantify the other shareholders' contribution to the event. So the question's been asked, what is this cost council? It's cost council cash plus resource, but the other shareholders in the PPP have made a contribution as well. So are you able to speak to that, Ariki? We might leave that to later, pop back to that, and we'll carry on with the presentation.
Sounds good. So here's an example of one of the community engagement activities. It was the Locals Day. We put up 8,000 tickets for Rotorua locals to attend the event. A couple of photos there that show the number of people that turned up. To put a value to it, I'm not a big fan of monetizing these sorts of things, but 8,000 tickets is at $35 a ticket is around $280,000. So if we were to monetize it, that's the kind of value we'd be placing on something like that. So to have 8,000 people coming through the gate was massive. It added vibrancy to the event and was great for engaging locals. Kids Works is another part of the event. It's not necessarily critical to the sport operations side of things, but it's something that's really important to our group, and that's opportunities to get local children involved in mountain biking and using the event as kind of an inspirational tool to get them engaged. Kids Works is made up of many things. The photos that you see up here are actually one element of that. We call it Share the Ride. It was a collaboration where we worked with Sport Bay of Plenty, one of our major media partners, Pink Bike, which is the world's biggest mountain biking online publication, and Giant Bicycles, one of our major sponsors. We identified, as one part of that program, we identified 10 at-risk youth through the Sport Bay of Plenty Active Lifestyles program. We took them out into the forest. We taught them about mountain biking culture and the opportunities to link with their families and whānau out there. And then we took them to the event and we presented each of those rangatahi with a brand new Giant Bicycle as well, so that they could carry that forward for the rest of the year. So again, it's not something that was critical to the centre part of the event, but it's one of those kind of leverage and legacy opportunities that we're really passionate about. And then, of course, volunteers. We had over 300 applications for the volunteers. You can ask most people involved in sport. They'll tell you finding large numbers of volunteers or big workforces like that is really challenging. It wasn't for us. We put out the call and we had 300 respondents. We had to cut that down to 235. 75% of those were Rotorua locals. And the philosophy that we tried to cultivate in our volunteer workforce was one of, this is a major event. This is Rotorua versus the world. And we're going to turn on the hospitality and we're going to make an event that other places just simply cannot rival. The second outcome that we're aiming for was putting Rotorua on the map as a genuine international mountain biking mecca. Again, I've got 3 examples here. The first is with the number of media that attended. So we had 194 media accredited at the event. 93 of those were international. 65 of those were from major international mountain biking publications with huge engaged followers. The media value estimated by our international Crankworks team is around 7 million. I don't know how they pull that number, but maybe the Duckworth-Lewis system, I'm not too sure, but they have their way of measuring media, and that's the figure they've put to it this year. The second example is around the production that we commissioned in-house. So this is the production that we as event organisers drive and control. An example there of a screenshot. Basically, this is content that's pushed out via live webcasts and also videos that can be watched on demand online. It's very heavy in destinational content. And last year we had 1.8 million viewers internationally through 4 international webcast and broadcast partners. This year we've had over 14 partners internationally pick up the event in over 26 countries. The figures to date are 4.6 for international viewership of that content, and that doesn't include a number of the partners who will not report their figures to us. So that's only a fraction of the eyes that saw the event. The numbers are significant, and once again, that's destination-heavy content that's getting pushed out internationally. So that's really significant in my opinion. The third example is just the additional exposure that came by the by. This was not stuff that we drove. This was driven by the people who were here. An example would be the guy in the photo there, Nikolai Rogatkin, who pulled off the world first of a move called the Twister on our slopestyle course. In 1 week, it had 2.7 million views internationally. So this outcome is really about getting the eyes of an engaged mountain biking world looking at Rotorua, and those are three examples of how the event was able to generate that kind of attention. And I've got a couple of examples on the next slide as well, Dave, if you want to pull that up.
Just before we do, Madam Chair, talking about the international viewership. So Mountain Bike Events Limited receives royalties from that viewership. So while we've posted a 39,000 loss for this year, there are still royalties to be received. We've put in the budget a figure equivalent to 2015, but as you can see, the viewership is well up. And look, just last month we received $2,000 in royalties from 2015 content. So, you know, it's a long game we're playing here, so there'll be further revenue coming forward. So I'll just move to the next slide.
So this is a video of some content that partners of ours filmed. So it's not our content, it's not content that we produced. They are videos produced by others. And I just want you to listen to some of the things that they're saying about our destination. Yeah.
Crankworks, the world's largest mountain bike festival, rolled into Rotorua, New Zealand to kickstart the 2015 mountain bike season. Situated in the heart of the North Island, Rotorua is best known for its geothermal activity. But active geysers and bubbling mud pools aside, the region also lays claim to being New Zealand's mountain bike mecca, boasting over 100 kilometers of world-class trails.
So that was content through Red Bull Media House. This next video is one
When we
by...
die and go to mountain bike heaven, there's a good chance it'll probably look a lot like Rotorua, New Zealand. Temperate climate, the perfect amount of elevation, and the most amazing dirt.
I stopped because I wanted
New
you
Zealand.
to hear that.
Never been here before. I've seen how awesome it is.
This
and
is by a
Queenstown
partner,
and Bike Park.
one of our sponsors.
Definitely excited to be here. Don't know what to expect.
And the third is content created by a TV program out of the United States.
Okay, well, we've got amazing dirt gold around here.
All the athletes that have come here so far just love our dirt.
It's pretty much one of the funnest types of dirt you can ride. Smoother, it honestly looks cooler.
It's got no rocks in it.
It's just amazing. It's got volcanic properties. It's great stuff for mountain biking.
So 3 clips there, content created by partners that were not created by us internally. Those were other people raving about our event. First was Red Bull Media House, one of the biggest content producers of extreme sports internationally. Second was a webcast series by one of our sponsors, SRAM. And the third was through the NBC's World of Adventure, which is primetime television viewing in the United States. The third outcome is economic impact and perception change. Here are just a few top-line results pulled out of the APR report. First is to basically show that a lot of people came here for Crankworks. So that was of the people that were surveyed, 95.6% of them indicated that they were here for the event first and foremost. They stayed for a pretty good amount of time, so the average length of stay was 9.6 nights. The event is helping to change people's perception of Rotorua. So 55% of the respondents said that Crankworks Rotorua improved their perception of...
Word that's fallen out of this is that our dirt is the new snow. And that's something that I think we can capitalise on more and more and more, because we have it 365 days a year. It's not weather dependent. My question to you is, could we use those figures? Because this is a question I'm often asked. What was the economic benefit? And we've now got the report, thank goodness, because it's awfully helpful. Because we've got other events like Boreang, and can we say that on average, when we hold a major international event, that is the net value to our community? Or is it a one-off Crankworks special that we've got this $8 million economic benefit?
It's the report that we commissioned from APR is focused on the 1 week of the event. It doesn't count what happens outside of the event, and that's one of the really tough things we know is true, but we've struggled to prove or find a methodology to measure that, and that's the economic impact that happened.
Report done on that event. That was 12 million to the Rotorua economy, but assessed at 30 million to the New Zealand economy. And so what our pitch going forward to MBIE is that Crankworks actually not only sells Rotorua, but New Zealand, Inc. as a mountain biking destination. So, we're hoping that there'll be buy-in from them on that score.
There's a number of questions, so we'll fire ahead. Mr. Waru.
Thank you, Madam Chair. O tira tātou katoa mōrena. I tēnei te wiki o te reo Māori. Nō reira, kia kaha tātou ki te kōrero Māori. Hoi anō, tērā. Kia hoi rāwiri, kōrua ko Ariki. Tēnā kōrua. Awesome report. Love. Beautiful. The economic impact, positive. Just wanted to ask, and I know you sort of touched on it, I was going to ask about the methodology behind getting these figures, because they're pretty great figures. Just wanted to know, what's the plan post-2017? Have you sort of thought about that?
Asking me to let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, I am actually. Well, this, we've got to own this event.
There's a couple of futures that are possible. Just to sort of simplify it for this point. One in which we see out the existing contract, which is which includes 2017. If we can't get enough support for that, what we would look to do, if we don't get enough support to extend the contract, what we'd probably look to do is wrap up the event, try and clear any of the underwrite that we've currently dipped into, and ride off into the sunset. That would be the objective if we were to go down that track. I think it would be a shame to go there, because I think that the opportunities are massive. And so there's another future in which we are able to obtain support through central and local government and through our partners to extend the contract with a view to a 10-year plan. In that future, we push more into the international viewership, getting content out to more eyes. We push harder into the eastern seaboard of Australia. We know 7% of our attendees this year were Australian. That was up from 5% last year. So we know that we can get those Aussies over here. So I think a stronger marketing push over there. We've tabled a vision to MBIE, and we expect to find out in August as to whether that will come through or not. I guess for the first 2 years we've taken quite an aggressive approach to the event. We've added to it, we've grown it, and which is why we've sort of teetered on that around that kind of break-even point, and ended up with a deficit. So we can either continue that kind of aggressive approach and plateau at some point later in the future, or we can do it next year.
And can I add, it's a good point you raise about owning the event, because the people who would like to take it from us are lining up. And so I was approached at least twice in the expo by trade industry people who believe that there's a destination in the South Island who are standing up to take it over in 2018. Ariki and Tuck have done a fantastic job on building the relationship with CEI and Whistler, and we hope to grow that relationship both on a local government level and on a cultural level. So they like the way we've woven culture into the event down here, and they're looking to do the same with their First Nations people in North America. So we think that the synergy between the two destinations works really well, and so that'll be our kaupapa next month.
Just one more thing to add to. Recently, Terry Stevens came to Rotorua, and he had some great ideas, some great kōrero about sort of adding value to the experience, adding to the experience. I'm not too sure if you fellows are in on that kōrero, but are there any thoughts about using some of the suggestions that he tabled?
I've seen some of the suggestions that he's tabled, but I wasn't in a position to sort of hear them firsthand. What we've done is we've looked at the channels that we've opened up through the last 2 years, and some of those channels extend to Whistler Blackcomb and the tourism partners over there. And so what we've tried to focus on is how can we leverage from those networks that we've created. So rather than thinking outside of what we've got, we're thinking inside of what we've got and what we've established. Those are new channels that didn't exist before, and those are opportunities that, an example, if I ask the question, which tourism operators in Rotorua that are locally owned and operated might have an interest in driving their business over to Whistler, because we've got the connections over there now to be able to facilitate those discussions. So that's one example of a new opportunity that has very little to do with mountain biking, but is really about leveraging off the networks and opportunities we've created. And I suspect that that would be in line with some of the comments that Terry Stevens had made.
Okay,
thank you.
All right, moving on now, Councillor McVicker.
Chair, well done, guys. I certainly support Crankworks and what you've achieved, and I can see further opportunities down the track. Some questions, if I may, just some clarification. You've got spectators up there, a substantial increase. Does that include the free day for local people?
Yes.
It does? Did you say 8,000 people?
Yep. And we had a Locals Day last year as well.
Okay. Oh, you did too. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The income from ticket sales, did it meet your budget? I know that we have seen budgets over the years. Where do our figures stack up with regard to the budget that was established some time ago?
I've only been involved since September 2014. I suppose that's back far enough to know what the budgets were at that point. I couldn't comment on budgets that were tabled before that. But I know that we had factored in a larger audience than what we've had for the last, in terms of the live audience. What we've come to over the last probably 6 months is that the real opportunity is in the international viewership and the content that gets pushed out overseas. That's where the real opportunity is. If we can continue to grow the house audience, that'd be great too, and there is capacity to do that. But we're certainly going to be more conservative with the ticket sales side of things over the coming time.
So the ticket sales didn't come up to budget is what you're indicating.
It didn't come up to
David,
budget.
you'd have a better idea, I guess.
And Madam Chair, if I can add that very weather dependent. So in 2015, half the slopestyle crowd walked off to watch the Cricket World Cup final. And part of the MBI funding in 2015 was ring-fenced for a report which was done by TRC. And they said that we were over-dependent on ticket sales as a revenue stream to support this event, which is why we've been able, after 2 years of staging the event, 2016 we had pretty much excellent weather for the event and good crowds, but while there is some room to attract more, we feel, as the event gets wider recognition, we can't rely on that. So that's what we've taken back to MBIE to say we need a greater level of funding to make this event financially sustainable for Rotorua and New Zealand.
Thank you for that. My other question is the APR report itself. To have more than a double from $3.7 million to $8 million over a period of a year, and a threefold increase in domestic visitors, adding to the figure, can we get some substance to justify that increase? I can't quite see how you'd achieve a threefold increase from the domestic section of those attending. And I have read their report.
Yeah, me too. I was reading it this morning, and that is one of the topics that's addressed further down in the body of the text, because I just can't recall it off the top of my head at this point. Sorry, I can't answer that right at this moment.
maybe you could come back to us with some information
Happy to
later.
do that.
That would be the best way to approach it, I think.
It's not his report, though.
No, but it could be clarified, I'm sure. I'm sure it can be clarified from APR. All right, moving on, Councillor Sturt.
Firstly, congratulations, and from the Sport and Recreation portfolio, we totally support the endeavours that you're making. However, it's got to pay its way, and certainly if I was looking from a Queenstown point of view and they got access to these figures, they will be putting a very strong case forward that it'll be self-funding, there'll be no reliance on underwriting of any type. The thing that I want to enhance is the opportunity. I mean, we've got Cycle Week, we've got the opportunity shortly of a world-class BMX track being built at Waipa Village. We've got some of the best mountain bike trails in the world out in the Waipa area of Whakarewarewa Forest. We've got Crankworks. What I was thinking, I didn't go to this guy's presentation, and maybe he had mentioned that, but an opportunity to piggyback and enhance what is a core event in Crankworks, to then piggyback and say, have a month of events, like people have arts festivals and music festivals and things like that, focusing on the bike with Crankworks, BMX World Champs maybe, downhill runs, all sorts of things. And I'm just thinking, is that where you want to take this, or do you think another body above that should be established to enhance the opportunities for the international visitor, but the local visitor as well?
If I can answer that one, Madam Chair. With a wider, festival of highlighting our wonderful assets. We will get close to that next year. So we have been in discussions with Enduro World Series, and we will find out later this month whether we secure a round of Enduro World Series for 2017 as well. They don't set their calendar until later in July. But next month, Crankworks will run over 2 weekends, and then the weekend after that will be the Xterra Multisport Festival, which features mountain biking as well. So there'll be a big period of focus on our Rotorua mountain biking product during that late March, early April next year.
Just one more small comment, Madam Chair. They referred to in the private videos about Rotorua's claim to being the Mecca. I want to see that Mecca thing in concrete. So, I just hope with the discussions that you're involved in, that can take that to the next level, because I think, we can't rely on, you're going to have to rely on external funders if the domestic market, and capacity on the mountain too is a big issue, because when I went there, it was absolutely jam-packed. And the other thing I want to say through you, Madam Chair, is the support from the eyesight at the event, and where they were helping international and New Zealanders, and what was on, what was available in Rotorua, the site itself. They did a fantastic job. I stood and observed for about 5 minutes, and it was just unbelievable what they were doing to promote Rotorua, the product, not only mountain biking and Crankworks, but Rotorua per se. So I think the spin-offs are probably a little bit wider than what the report is saying, and I'd like your comments on that if I could, please.
I would acknowledge, as Ari has already, in terms of the resources that Council has thrown behind this event. It's not just the eyesight. Our finance team do a fantastic job of keeping our financial accounting and reporting on track as well. The regulatory team deal with, help us with managing the noise emissions from the site, traffic management, all of that stuff. It's a great, and a similar effort goes in from Skyline in terms of added value that they provide to the event with their staff and resources, and also with multi-day adventures. Without quantifying it all, we can if we wish, but I think it goes without saying.
All right, we'll just leave that one there. There's a number of councillors still with questions, and I would just ask you, councillors, in the interest of time, because we are trying to have this presentation 20 minutes, we're already 35. Could you just ask one question each and try and get your question all into one thing? So we've got Councillor Maxwell, Councillor Rokawatake, Councillor Gould, Councillor Tapsell, and Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before my one question, tautoko te kōrero a Rawiri kia korua. Huge congratulations on the fantastic event. Can you switch to that slide that had the 3 primary outcomes? I mean, that was just brilliant. It ticked all the boxes for me. And Madam Chair, I just want to add that some 3 months ago, our CEO for NZCT came up here looking at the riding for the disabled and everything, and I took him up to show him where we had Crankworks, and he was really pleased and gave a bit of a report on that. But I'm pleased that whole of Rotorua has been able to 1, 2 and 3. It really did it for us, and that was something that I was really rapt about. The other one is when I came up to the event, I had lunch with the Canadians who came out from Whistler, and their children were playing with, and I watched them, and internationally they were playing with our youngsters, and they were really moved by the way the event was being run, and also the Maori cultural input that had been added this year. I thought it was tremendous too. So congratulations. And the one question I had was, why did MBIE drop $124,000 off what they gave the previous year? I'm just curious.
So under the criteria of MBIE, when the application was done in the first instance, basically they required that we have to show what Councillor Sturt referred to as financial sustainability going forward, and that saw decreased investment from MBIE year on year until basically they exit the relationship. So those were the grounds under which our initial application was made. The new application that we have in front of them is doesn't taper off to the same effect. We've come to the conclusion that New Zealand as a whole is a major benefactor of this event, and so we need to see a level of investment that doesn't decline year on year if we are to commit to a long-term objective.
Councillor Kawate.
Kia ora te mana, tēnā kōrua. First of all, you both, actually you deserve a pat on the back for the work that you've done. I find it hard to believe that in a couple of 2 short years we have come this far to do an event such as this. And certainly I thank you, Dave, for your efforts. You trot off overseas and you do the mahi over there with Tuck and others, and it's just great. I want to thank you for the Locals Day. I went and I saw young people up there that are not usually associated with mountain biking, with mountain bikes, because they just don't get the opportunity, and they were there in numbers. I want to thank you for that. But I just wonder if at some stage, and it doesn't have to be today, if you could give an indication of who are these young people that come in from overseas, because I saw them there. Are they young professionals, or are they fringe dwellers, or we saw them on the well, they could be fringe dwellers, but we saw them on the overhead there on the video and I'm not quite sure, because there must be an opportunity for us to, as has been said, to stage other events during that time as well. So how can we get them in the loop and hook them onto other things? And but I don't actually know who they are, what the makeup is of those attendees particularly from overseas.
Again, the APR report addresses the breakdown between spectators and competitors. The participants who are here are professional athletes. So the ones that were speaking in the video, they're professional athletes that are on a world tour. In terms of spectators, there were people here that were here for KidsWorks, that take their kids to all of the KidsWorks events internationally on the Crankworks World Tour. The super fans. We don't have the breakdown really specifically in the APR report. What it does have is just the breakdown of people who are here. And what we know is that I think it's 69% of people were between the ages of 25 and 50. So that was a surprise. I thought we'd be seeing more in that younger age category, but what we're finding is that people in that sort of middle age group are coming, and they come in with nice cars and good bikes. They're a high value sector, and that's the part that we're really interested in. Yeah. In terms of extending the benefits to draw more people here for longer, I mean, competitor fatigue is a real thing. Thank you for your comments on commending the team. The team is much wider than who you see sitting here, and we've really stretched and pushed every relationship that we have in order to make this work. And so I'd say that the delivery team's fatigue is a real thing as well, and that extends to our volunteers and the community. So it's just a sensitive area for us. So we are looking at how can we extend the benefits and extend the stay, but we're taking into consideration those elements of fatigue as well.
And could I add, Madam Chair, that there are young Rotorua athletes who are trying to emulate the professionals that come down here, and they're on the world stage attending other rounds of the Crankworks World Tour. So a number of young people from our community have been across overseas as ambassadors for Rotorua and competing on the Crankworks World Tour, which is great to see.
My question is to do with costs. On page 26 of the APR report, you put your domestic total 2015 1.9 million, 2016 to 5.8, which is 3 times increase. Your statistics showed on the board there that your visitor numbers basically went up double. The information on page 30 where you indicated that one person stayed 400 nights, I think that was particularly wrong, could have obscured the results. I think you should look at New Zealand, what they did with the Hawke's Bay Marathon. They laid on 19 extra flights going into Hawke's Bay for it, and I think they could promote it more. We had an example 2 weeks ago where Tourism New Zealand gave 1.5 million to promote the Mud Festival for the 1st to the 3rd of December next year. You know, that type of funding or that type of support would probably be a lot more benefit, as I feel that 2017 Crankworks will be the make or break to keep it for another period of 2 or 3 years. I'm saying your figures at APR, are they correct at 1.9 to 5.8, or because to me it seems to be a huge increase.
I don't think we really need to answer that. We can get some clarification from APR for future. All right, I think that would be a more useful way to go at this point, because yeah. All right, so moving on, Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ariki and Dave, for your presentation. This has just been absolutely amazing. Dave, did you say that it brought in $30 million to the New Zealand economy?
That was the world champs, the mountain bike world champs in 2006. So when they did the economic benefit assessment back then, they assessed the benefit to both the Rotorua economy and the wider New Zealand economy. And we're finding this with Crankworks. So a lot of the riders come here and then they catch a flight to Queenstown and they go Queenstown. So, you know, the people here from Tasmania, a whole van load of them that headed off for a week's mountain biking in Queenstown after Crankworks Rotorua. That's just one example.
Yeah, and I congratulate you a lot. I mean, the first year was amazing, but to improve the economic impact to sort of 4.4 million in just 1 year was absolutely amazing. So congratulations. I had a few questions, but probably the one question I will ask is, we've talked about cost a lot, but I'm interested in the environment. Do you have a plan for afterwards on the impact on the environment? Will it be returned back to as good as normal?
I guess it depends on what the future of the event's going to hold and whether we go for a longer term or a current term. I mean, a lot of the structures that were purpose-built up there, for the most part, it's moving dirt and then putting in wood structures. It's pretty easy to get everything back to the way that it was before. At this stage, though, we're focused on keeping that for as long as we possibly can and running it out for the long term. So fingers crossed that we can keep it going for a while, and if we don't, then we'll certainly be looking at what we have to do to get everything back to the way it was.
And if I can add, we've we've done our bit by removing a fair bit of gorse from the adjoining Rotorua block, and in the first year we paid over $3,000 to reinstate damage done to trails by the Enduro World Series. So yeah, we're very conscious of the environmental footprint of the event.
Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I have to say congratulations on the event and the way it is perceived. I too have some questions about APR's figures, but that's the return side of things. My question here is actually, I just want to clarify the investment that this council has actually made to date. Am I right in thinking that we've underwritten a loss of $94,000 in 2015? We're underwriting a loss of $39,000 in 2016, plus we have also contributed $75,000 in cash contribution each year as well. So am I correct in thinking Crankworks has actually cost this council $283,000 to date?
Councillor Donaldson?
Absolutely.
Yep. Thank you very much for coming along today, Councillor Donaldson and Ariki, and answering all of our questions. And there's a few more on APR, but I will get that in due course, I'm sure. So we really appreciate your time. Please, we have got recommendation 2 with the Cycling New Zealand, and I understand they're not here yet. So if we could move now to recommendation 3 to our quarterly progress, and I will ask someone to move the report on page 35, that the quarterly progress towards 2030 June 2016 be received. Councillor Gould seconded Mr. Waru. Welcome, Amy. Is anyone going to, you're just going to introduce the report on your own and speak to it? Okay. Thank you, Amy. Right.
Tēnā koutou. Thank you. All right, so I will just take us through the report. I will, actually I need to grab the mouse off Carol because I'm going to use, there's a Prezi presentation, sorry. Just while the team's getting that sorted, and hopefully they can bring me over the mouse when they're ready so I can zoom in. So I'll just talk through the ones I think that need a little bit of extra explanation, and other than that, if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, we'll take questions at the end. So the objective of this report is to keep us focused on our 2030 vision and actually whether the outcomes are being seen in the community. Just as a top level, the 2016 priorities of inner city and business innovation as a top line have stayed green throughout. This is our 4th report, so this is the 4th time they've been consistently on track and showing improvement ahead of our targets, which are generally compared to New Zealand performance, so that's great. Just flip out that. Okay, all right. Okay, so we do have this quarter 4 of our measures that are coming up as being amber. I will take you through those, and I'd just like to say that I guess that to me there aren't any really strong red flags in these. These tend to be either very marginally amber, and you'll see that, for example, with the homes that match needs as being just only slightly under the New Zealand average, or are the ones that are tended to be based on our surveys, which with a sample size of 150 only gives us it gives us an 8% level of variation in terms of confidence in terms of how accurate they are, so they do tend to fluctuate quite a bit. So if we just go through those, starting with our resilient community. So the sense of belonging, that one we are showing as amber. This is because we are slightly under our target. But as I say, this one is quite subject to fluctuation. And the fluctuation we did have this quarter was actually a move from people saying they were well connected to in that neither connected nor poorly connected. So there hasn't been an increase in poorly or very poorly. It's just people are more, I guess, in the middle ground this quarter. Sense of safety has been one that's been consistently green the entire time. So our target for that is 85%, and we're consistently getting good measures around that, which I think is great to see for our town. Homes that match needs. So this is one of the first measure for this one is around the value of our housing starts and our renewals. So this is one which is it's up quite considerably from our last quarter, the rolling year to date, so up by 13.6% on a value basis, so showing that we are getting quite an increase in either new homes or improvements to our homes. But we have shown that as amber because it's just marginally underneath the New Zealand increase of 13.9, and our target was to be at New Zealand or above. So again, I don't think it's a great red flag because it's so close, but we did want to be true to our targets and not show it as green. I did have a look at the upcoming data because we are a bit lagged with this report, and I'm very confident that we will be ahead of New Zealand in the next quarter because we have we're looking to see a bigger jump again than what we've got here. The healthy homes, this one we set ourselves a target of 1,200 homes based on the progress we were making last year. I think at the end of June, so we're still waiting for the final numbers to come through. We have to collect them through ECA and so on. We'll probably be between 50 and 100 homes short, and that is because there was actually less funding through ECA in this last financial year, and it's been targeted slightly differently in terms of a lot more targeting towards rental homes, which some of the third-party funders that also put money in don't want to put money in for that purpose. They were very focused on just owned homes. So that's the reason we're slightly under that target. But that was a self-set target in terms of just trying to keep the momentum going and make the most of the funding. And we've certainly continued to put in our part of the funding to try to achieve as many as we can.
So just a quick question. With the
wait towards the end. Just note it down. Okay. We'll do them all at the end. All right?
All right. Okay, outstanding places to play. So there's two measures for that one. One is how often recreational facilities are used. This was down slightly this quarter, which could actually reflect the season from May to February. And we have a target here of 75%. So of people using our facilities on a monthly or more than a monthly basis, so that one was a little bit under target and slightly down from the summer months, as you would expect. We're still seeing great satisfaction though with the variety and the availability of our recreational facilities, so that's still a very strong measure. Vibrant City Heart, I won't spend too much time on this because, as I say, this has been one of our real success measures. It's been tracking as green for all four of our reports in terms of both our retail spend being consistently increasing, and I did have a look at a chart looking at from 2013 annually through till now, and we are not only increasing at a rate faster than New Zealand, but we are consistently increasing year on year, which is great to see given the trends in terms of retailing and online and so on. So we were sort of, I guess, fighting some big trends there, but doing a good job in terms of bringing back the spend into that inner city area. And likewise with the people on the street, that measure, we don't have a comparable autumn measure at the moment, so our numbers are slightly down on summer, but until we start to get that being done on a whole, I guess, the historical data collected, it's hard to compare that with an equivalent time period. Again, I won't spend too much time on business, innovation and prosperity because this is also one that's stayed on track. So we're showing a 2.9% increase in GDP for the year to March versus 2.3 at the New Zealand level. So tracking again ahead slightly of the New Zealand average, and a big driver of that is our tourism industry with our visitor nights up by 7.1%. Employment choices have gone from amber to green this quarter, which is great to see. Personal income is roughly is pretty much equivalent to the New Zealand level increase and much higher than the inflation, which is great. But this is the sort of the star one, I guess, is that our employment rate is tracking down, so down 0.33 percentage points. So we're down at 7.2 this year to March versus 7.5 in the prior year, and in the same period, New Zealand's actually gone up very, very slightly. But we're moving in a different direction, which is where we want to be going. And lastly, to the enhanced environment. The first measure we've got here is air quality. This is one of those ones which is showing as amber, but it does look sort of overstated, if you like. And these numbers haven't changed since last quarter because the air quality measures are really a winter measure. So this is at end of March. So it was showing that in the year, basically last winter, there was one more breach than there was the winter before. But this winter, again, we're quite a little bit lagged on this data, but when we come to you for the next quarter, there'll be a considerable improvement showing. And I know the air quality working group met yesterday, and I think there were no breaches at all in June, and it's June, July, August are the months that we tend to get the breaches, and so we are sort of tracking down on those breach numbers, which, so we'll see that go green next quarter. The water quality, that one's staying on track in terms of reduction from previous years, and the final measure in terms of the Lake Trophic Index, that's an annual measure that we get, so next quarter we'll get a new update on those, and so we'll be able to understand whether or not there's some improvements occurring there. So I guess in summary, I think it's fair to say that there's some good, strong results in terms of the inner city, in terms of our business prosperity, in terms of safety, employment, and our satisfaction with our recreational facilities. There are some in there that are amber, but that we expect to go green next quarter. For example, the housing starts and renewals and the air quality. And there are a few others in there that are amber, which we do need to have a look at, but I also want to have a look at when post the next election, when we think about how do we continue this type of measuring and how does that potentially change? Is that survey measure working for us, because there is a lot of fluctuation with quite a small sample. So how do we manage that cost of getting that data, which isn't otherwise readily available, with accuracy, because we don't want to get caught up in too much of the fluctuations in terms of how we read and interpret that.
Very thorough, Amy. Right, so the first question, Mr. Bassanio Tuli.
Good, Madam Chair, thank you. Just 3 quick questions. Are council staff considered or eligible for the insulation program?
I honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I haven't heard that we aren't, but I don't know the official answer.
I've just had some informal talks, and staff like the idea of insulation, but have never been considered. I think that I'm not sure if there are official approaches to staff to say we've got 50 to 100 homes that need to be insulated. Perhaps council staff could be part of that program.
I think it's open to all of the community in terms of, and I guess we haven't targeted specific communications to staff, but that's something that we could do. There are eligibility criteria as well in terms of to be able to access that funding.
And just secondly, how would is this for the lumber cube and 80 unemployed? Will that have the impact on the next report? Or?
Well, so this report is generally to the end of March quarter, so we are lagged by a quarter, so you'd expect you wouldn't see that until either the next report or the report after.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Amy, I'm just interested in your categorisation of the Vibrant City Heart as being in green. The retail spend, okay, it's up 3.9%, but retail spend is just not the City Heart, is it? That's just spends on credit cards and so on. And if you actually look at your pedestrian counts, you will see that for autumn 2016, the pedestrian count on Titanico Street has dropped below 7.5% below last winter.
So in terms of the retail spend, that is specifically with the inner city, so we get data only for the inner city area, it's not for the whole of Rotorua. So that is a very specific measure around our inner city vibrancy. The people on the street, yes, it has dropped since winter, but we don't have a comparable autumn figure, so we want to, so this stage it's not clear in terms of how we would call that. So we will, for the next measure, we've got spring coming up, so that'll be a very clear ability to compare to the spring of both 2014 and 15. That's where we have the most data, because that's the standard counting time we have, and from then onwards we'll be able to start to pick up a year-on-year comparison.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair. Kia ora, Amy. Just a quick question was about the water quality one, the one that you got up. Actually, it says one lake declining. I wonder if you could sort of tell me which lake that is.
That was Lake Tarawera.
Interesting. Thank you.
Ed Chadwick?
Thanks, Amy. I think it gives us a very good snapshot over the quarter about the goals that we set. I recall some discussion last time about notes at the bottom. We've got sources, but notes may help some to know. There are some of these, like the home insulation scheme, that we can't do unless we've got co-funders. So that a note at the bottom might be quite helpful, because it looks like these are entirely our responsibility, but often they're done in partnership with someone else. If that funding source dries up, that's the reason why the numbers are where they're at. So I'd love to see some notes. And then I suppose the next issue is, in the next iteration of a new council, are we measuring the right things? Because I met a mayoral candidate from a sister city in Lake Macquarie yesterday who was absolutely raging about the inner city, how beautiful it looked, the gardens, the paving, the fact that they're not broken up by utilities, how tidy, how clean, the gardens. You know, I'm not sure we're measuring quite the right things. I don't always need to be a Pollyanna about the good things. I don't mind measuring things that aren't going anywhere so we know what to do too. But I think that's the next iteration that we need to consider. What are we going to measure?
Absolutely. I think the appropriate time will be post the election, with working with the council at hand in terms of what do we measure and how do we do that, and still balancing the need to try to keep it, not the number of measures in check as well, but also what are the right measures. And I think I probably didn't say it this time, but we have been quite clear that this is not a measure of council performance solely. This is the whole of district outcome. So there's so many different factors and players at work here, but this is really just us saying, well, actually we want to pay attention to those outcomes because that's what our community have said is important to us in terms of what we improve. So what can we do in terms of the levers that we have?
Councillor Sturt?
No, I'm very ambitious for sport and recreation. So I wondered, how does my group get up to green when 65% of people in the Rotorua district either use weekly, more than once a week, or daily our sport and recreation facilities in the Rotorua district? That's one question. So when do I get to green? I want to next time round. And the other one is, I think you're right about the Pollyanna situation, Your Worship, because I think whilst we look at the unemployment rate, I think we need to have a youth focus in terms of unemployment, because those under the age of 25, the unemployment rate in Rotorua is beyond the national average, and I think we need to have a look at some strategies in terms of that to see how, I know it's a whole of government role, but certainly how we as a community can open some doors and get these young people who are all set to go and get training, go and get IT, go and be part of the new technology world, and yet they can't get jobs. So I think there needs to be some sort of a focus in terms of that. Whilst the unemployment trend is down, particularly young people under the age of 25, it's not a good look at the moment, and I think it's one of the hard things that we really have to grasp in the new council and put some focus on it. And I know Councillor Tapsell will support that as well. So thank you.
So the question there, it may be an issue in terms of what target we've set. So we set 75%, which was in the sport and recreation strategy. In terms of us wanting to be a very active district. I think that's quite ahead of other districts in terms of our level of activeness, in terms of 75% weekly or more. And we have been tracking pretty consistently above 65, between 65 and 70% in that the tracking. So that might be something we need to look at as well in terms of, have we got the right target? Like, are we actually concerned that it's 65% that are on a weekly basis? Because obviously that's well more than half of our people out there doing something. So I think it's so that, I guess, could be part of the conversation. If we really wanted to get to 75, what are the things that we can do in terms of increasing the ability to access? So I don't think it's just going to change on its own at the moment. That seems to be the steady kind of where we're at throughout the whole kind of year period. So if we do want it to lift, how do we look at some of those initiatives identified in the sport and recreation strategy and get them on the plan?
Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. with your quarterly progress towards 2030, at the bottom you've got sources, Perception Survey, Rotorua Lakes Council, 189 responses. Was that in part of one of the questions, or was that responses from people in different parts of the questions?
That was 100. So this quarter, it was 189 people were interviewed and asked all of the questions. So they answered every question, all 189. So the target is 150, but we also have asked for it to be stratified against our demographics, so we get the appropriate mix of respondents. So it ended up being 189 to be able to get to the right kind of stratification for this quarter.
Okay, do you think 189 is sufficient, or do you think it should be a little bit more? Like 3?
Yeah, so that is one of the issues we have in terms of with that level of participants. You have a plus or minus 8% range in terms of to get a confidence level of 95%. So it is potentially too low. So that's one of the things we talked about is how do we actually get, we've struggled to find other alternative measures in terms of to measure those types of factors that are important to our community. So one option would be to increase the sample size, but with that you get higher cost as well. So it's a matter of, I think, we've got one more survey to go under this contract with APR, who have been doing the survey for us, and then we'll need to review that.
Other question I've got is that the four main industries in Rotorua is forestry, farming, tourism and geothermal. Is there some way we can do surveys on those particular industries? Because that's going to be key for Rotorua for the future. You know, job employment will help the communities grow.
I'm sure we can get that data, I would imagine, on an annual basis. Whether we can get it accurately on a quarterly basis would be the other challenge. But I think the economic growth strategy and the work we're doing there will be paying close attention to the progress that we're making in the different industry sectors. And just on the youth employment, actually, if I might just come back to that was raised last time, and we did go and search to see what data we could find, but annual is the closest that you can get on that youth employment data at this stage.
Okay, I've got 3 more people wanting to ask a question, so we just need to move along quickly. We have got people waiting, so if we could just try and be succinct, that would be appreciated. Councillor Tapsell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Amy, and also thank you to the analyst that does this for us. I mean, there's the multitude of services that we provide. It is hard to just put on one page a snapshot of the things we're doing. But my question was actually around the amber and the environment with air quality. Now, I'm just curious about that because we don't actually have much control over that, because recently we've done the bylaw with the regional, Bapene Regional Council to merely just assist, and it's my understanding that our only power to control air quality is only to respond if someone's calling up about nuisance for smoke, for example. So I'm just wondering what the practicality of having air quality on that is, and it also raises another question on, are we doing enough and should we be doing more?
Okay, so the 2030 goal for enhanced environment talks about being known globally for a clean natural environment with air quality and healthy lakes. So essentially, again, it's not necessarily saying that we're the ones that have to be driving all of this, although again we do have the ability to potentially influence through our regulation or through working with our partners and so on. So it's really capturing, are we actually achieving that district-wide ambition of improving our air quality? And as I say, it has actually, it will, the next quarter looks significantly better, and there are some charts that they saw yesterday at the Air Quality Group showing that we are still on the trajectory down to the target of 0 at 2020, but there still needs to be continued work in that space. So there is a review of our air quality bylaw coming up, sort of probably starting the end of this year into the beginning of next year, to see if there's anything else that we need to do in that space.
Okay, I take then Councillor Donaldson, then we'll
Yes,
call questions to an
thank you, Madam Chair. It just follows on from Councillor Sturt, and it's around the unemployment figures, Amy, and I believe for young people aged 18 to 24, there would have been no drop in unemployment. A great percentage of those are not in work or not in employment, and WINS does have the figures in Rotorua for us to see how many of our young people are unemployed. I mean, every councillor here today knows that when a young person, and I'm thinking particularly of young men, when they rock up to WINS today to register for the unemployment benefit, they can expect to be on the benefit for 18 years. 18 years. And that is just not, that's not on. We cannot have young people parked up on the sideline making no contribution because they have no choices, because they can expect to be on the benefit for 18 years. So we need from WINS that hard data as to how many of our young people in the 18 to 24-year-old age group are unemployed, and we need to get targets from them that they themselves set and that we in some way can facilitate and help with to bring those numbers down, because that is not good long term for our city. So that's, I just wanted to say we just encourage you to not take no for an answer from a government department that must themselves have those figures. Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora.
I'll let Mayor Chadwick answer this.
Yes, look, I'm on the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, and they're looking at youth, not in employment, education or training. We have asked for disaggregated data so our data can be peeled out of Bay of Plenty wide, and we know exactly the Rotorua figures, and we know those on a training curve, those on a education curve, and those that are sitting purely on the dole. So we've asked for that data. We'll be reporting it. We're working with the Department of Statistics and Work and Income so that we'll get that, and that will be something that you'll be able to get on the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs website. So we're very focused on this, and the mayors around the country are focused on all our young children having universal access to a motor driver's licence before they leave school, and that's even those that don't have access to a car. So we're looking at a universal program that we can roll out. It's being trialled in Palmerston North now with Massey University. So that's the single focus of the Mayor's Task Force for Jobs. Get the data for our districts alone, our TLA alone, and then get this universal motor driver's licence.
I suppose if I can just say, Madam Chair, that I'm unhappy with the speed, Your Worship. I'm unhappy with the speed of this for young people.
Okay, well, I think we'll draw this to a close, this part. Briefly, a question from Councillor Donaldson, and we will move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Amy. Don't take offence, please, but it's almost like we need an APR person here to interpret these surveys for us. So, look, I was just a bit interested in the commentary on page 36 regarding the green to amber for resilient community and people's being less engaged, and also the amber around environment. And I just wonder, through this period that we've surveyed here, we've had a phenomenon, an entity that's generated something like 3,000 noise complaints in our community. And I just wonder if that's a factor that's reflected in some of our survey results here, and whether we'll see a change. I don't want to press a sore point, but you know, I just asked that question, and I wonder if you have had any feedback or any of the comments in the surveys about that.
There was definitely a lot of comment in the actual written commentary around the lumber cube issues. So that would point to the fact that yes, that would be something that would be affecting the results. We did strip out the east side results to see if that would change it, and it didn't actually change it much. But then again, it has been it's been a very hot issue across the whole of the district in terms of people talking about it and knowing people affected and so on. So I guess we'll see with the next one how the comments change and whether the numbers change with them.
All right. Thank you for your time. All right, so next up, if we can just... Councillor Donaldson, are you going to introduce the next, the New Zealand Mountain Bike National Performance Hub? Oh, Rob, okay.
I have met the guys, I do know that.
Okay, that's good. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you, Rob, that you'll introduce your team, and we'll move on. But just before we do that, could I just have a mover and seconder for the following motion, that the report Cycling New Zealand Mountain Bike National Performance Hub in Rotorua be received? Moved Councillor Sturt, seconded Councillor Gould. And you'll note that I've just moved this first part at the moment, and I'll do the second part at the end. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Welcome. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, Council. We're here as a group to talk about the agenda item around the New Zealand Cycling Mountain Bike Performance Hub that they want to base here in Rotorua. I've got with me Andrew Matheson, the CEO of Cycling New Zealand, Rob Waddell as well from Cycling New Zealand, and Paul Wollaston, who's the CFO from Wairiki Polytech. So they've got a presentation to run through. The key thing around this report is just briefly introducing it. It's going to be the only mountain biking high-performance hub in New Zealand that they want to base here in Rotorua, and it has a very strong alignment with a lot of the strategies that we've produced lately, sport and recreation, some of the economic growth work that's happening, also in the cycling and also in the event strategy. So the idea of this coming to Rotorua has a huge amount of advantages for us trying to continue our position as the centre of excellence for mountain biking, and this has been recognised by New Zealand Cycling. So I'll leave it to these gentlemen to have their report, and then we'll take any questions afterwards.
If I could, Madam Chair, one more introduction. Sitting up the back, watching closely, is Malcolm Thomas, who's also on the board of Cycling New Zealand. So I'd just like to acknowledge him here.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the introduction, Rob. He actually did a great job of covering it. Probably done a good summary there, and welcome to Malcolm as well up the back. I'm Rob Waddell, Commercial Lead for Cycling New Zealand. Andrew Matheson, the Chief Executive, and Paul Wollaston from Wairiki Polytechnic, one of our key partners, has kindly offered to come along this morning and talk as well. So we are very pleased to be able to talk to you about what we want to do in setting up the National Mountain Bike Hub here in Rotorua. The reason why Cycling New Zealand wants to set up this program is to cater for the gap that exists between schools and the high performance program. A lot of children, when they come out of school, currently in cycling, there's no pathway, no program, no process, and it's a pretty big cliff that they fall off. They're left to their own devices, and so we think this is a really great opportunity to capture that and to nurture that talent and to give it every chance possible of reaching its potential. So we think it'll have a really positive impact on cycling and mountain biking, and it's a program that's run right throughout the country. So there'll be a regional centre. So it's got a national focus, a regional centre, and a local delivery. And this is the only mountain bike hub that will be happening in New Zealand. Is the one that we'd like to set up in Rotorua. A little bit about what the program is. It is a very prestigious program. You're invited into it. You're selected into it by Cycling New Zealand, and it's basically a pathway, a process, and a program with resource and capability put around it to make sure that these athletes are on a world-class program through to the highest level possible. If you're wondering what its origins are and where the ideas come from, it originates, I guess the concept originates from something that's been very successful for Rowing New Zealand. Rowing New Zealand, those you may have observed, based at Karapiro, is now the most successful rowing nation in the world by quite some margin at the moment. Fingers crossed, hopefully that happens at Rio in a few months' time. But the person that actually set that program up in rowing is Andrew on my left. So there's some great foresight there that enabled that to happen, and when the results started coming through, it correlates almost directly with when that program was introduced into rowing. A little bit about what the hub actually will be. So it'll be a semi-professional team in an environment that goes around it. It'll have dedicated coaching resource, so one head coach and two half-time coaches, one downhill, one cross-country, and basically wrapping all the services and training facilities and opportunity around that is needed to get athletes to events, get them training, get them racing as well. It'll prepare athletes for competitions like World Champs, Olympic Games, as well as getting them into professional teams overseas. And by the time athletes get up to those teams, they're actually at a much higher level when they go to begin. At the moment, some of these athletes turn up and they're a long way off where they need to be to compete at that level and even train at that level. The sort of athletes that will be coming here are talented young kids that have shown potential in or around as they leave school or during school. They'll be invited into the program by Cycling New Zealand to either come and live here permanently or to come and attend training camps. There are about 20 riders based here in Rotorua, a mix of male-female, and the age group that it's looking to target is between that 16 to 23-year-old gap. And in addition, there'll be other riders, up to 50, coming from right around New Zealand to come here for around 8 1-week to 2-week camps throughout the year. We think this is a positive opportunity for Rotorua, and we're excited to look at how we can partner with you in achieving this. You've already got an amazing name internationally as a mecca and centre for mountain biking, and some very strong infrastructure which supports that right throughout your community. So it's the natural topography and the infrastructure you've put in place and the huge amount of volunteer time that's gone in by so many people to create what you've already got. We acknowledge and recognise it's been a wonderful place for us to launch this program. We think it aligns with the strategy you've got centred around mountain biking, tourism and culture, and you've got some very good events happening already. Crankworks is an example. The strong events that happen throughout the year. You've got the infrastructure, and we'd like to think that this is another key pillar of endorsing and adding to your authority and your gravitas as a centre of mountain biking, not only in New Zealand, but in the world. We think there's some opportunity within the community for this program to integrate. One of the positive aspects of Cycle New Zealand setting up its National Mountain Biking Centre here is that it is a direct line to through the right channels. So you've got a direct connection to the national body, Cycling New Zealand. You've got a direct connection to High Performance Sport New Zealand, and also the partners that come with us, that come with that too, such as UCI and some of the events that we've had happen in the past. In this region, as with other regions, we very much look to partner and enhance the great work that's already been done by people before us. And on that note, we've already employed local coach Sam Thompson as the lead coach. We think he's a wonderful talent. He's got great capability already, and he was ironically already very much in this space about developing talent. So just to highlight that we're not about coming in and trying to change everything. We're about using the great resource and talent that you've already got here and enhancing it. We think wider than that. We like the concept of coaches coaching coaches. We'll be keeping in mind we'll have 3 coaches here, up to 3 coaches, and it's in our best interest to make sure that they are spreading their expertise and knowledge right throughout the community, the wider community through Waikato Bay of Plenty, but also throughout New Zealand. And we think that will have a positive impact on helping young talent get that opportunity and develop. And we're also interested, and by default will end up being a lot in the community space, whether it just be through riding on the infrastructure that you've got around here, or participating in community rides. Keeping in mind a big part of the athlete development is actually competition, and very keen to look at the initiatives about how we can integrate and become part of the community and be very visible within the community as well, and serve as a role model for other children and other people that may have that sort of aspiration. We've been pleased to have a warm reception in setting up the program here in Rotorua. We've had a lot of support locally and excited about the co-funding partnerships and how they've come together. We've tried to not make it a major drain on any one particular source, but we have a number of people who have stepped up to help make this happen. There's some philanthropic support, as well as some commercial, some of it which we look forward to revealing when we have our public launch. But in particular, I'd like to acknowledge Wairiki Polytechnic, who we have enjoyed forming a partnership with. We think there's really great synergy and alignment with what they do. For a start, we will be using some of the accommodation and facilities at the holiday park. We'll be doing our testing and our training within the facilities that they've got there. And there's a long range of other opportunities that we've talked about and look forward to expanding around their course development and other sort of world-leading opportunities in that space as well. Might just throw just for 30 seconds to Paul, if Paul from Wairiki had any comment to add to that.
Kia ora tata. I think from a Wairiki point of view, we're seeing this as a great opportunity to liaise with the mountain biking fraternity. I mean, it is a growing sport in Rotorua. And from our point of view, there's always been a sports academy based at Wairiki. In the past, an emphasis on golf. There's been high-profile athletes like Luka Jones come through in the past. Mountain biking is just really another emphasis that actually can add to that facility. And also the fact that we do run a separate business, being the Rotorua Thermal Holiday Park, and that's actually a logical alternative to be using as accommodation, which is partly used as a park, but also we do run students as a hostel at the back there, and so this is actually sort of part of that process.
Thanks, Paul. So just about some of the wider impact of what this might provide for Rotorua. We think it aligns with your strategy, and we're excited to partner with you alongside some of your existing infrastructure and events. It will attract the very best talent in mountain biking to the area. They will come here to train. They'll come here. They'll live in your community. They'll come here and do camps in the community. And in this modern, exciting age of social media and people tweeting and Facebooking, and all of which is quite hard to keep up with, but they do bring profile and opportunity and ambassadorial type opportunities that can come from that. So we're also excited to talk to you about some of how we can support your goals and initiatives commercially. We're doing a lot in that space within Cycling New Zealand to become the centre of everything cycling in New Zealand, and there is opportunity around our website and some of our promotions and connections that we can make with you to have a direct connection and to be able to provide economic benefit in that sense. So we think it'll add to the ability to be able to leverage major events such as Crankworks, and we've been pleased to be able to support that and its growth as well with some of the letters of support we've been able to provide as well from a sporting point of view, and helping grow and enhance that, attracting more high-profile athletes to Rotorua, and bringing economic benefits such as visitor nights and spending and bed nights that come with that as well. There is potential for new events, particularly in the under-23 space, specifically maybe not a whole new event, but the opportunity to grab an existing event and bring it here to Rotorua and enhance that with the athletes that will be here as well. And probably, although it's a different model but a similar theme, we can look up the road to some of the positive benefit that's come from the new Avanti drome that's been set up in Cambridge. Obviously, that was a $32 million facility and a big group of people relocating. But certainly, we could all vouch firsthand. We've seen the benefit of having a positive young group of people come to town, their families, their support staff, their coaches, and the identity that it gives the town and what it can support within the town that's already happening, and enhance that as well. So look, just to close, we think you've got an incredibly strong name and reputation already internationally. We'd like to partner with you. We'd like to grow that, and we think there's a really exciting opportunity here to do that. Just to close, I'm going to pass to Andrew Matheson, who might have some comments that add of anything that I might have missed. Thanks.
Thank you, and thanks very much for the opportunity. As Rob said, there's lots of components that fit with this. What we see is fitting well with the community. A big piece that we've worked across all our hubs is making sure that we understand the opportunity infrastructure that sits in place and building and enhancing that. And I guess that's why it became a very obvious choice that we would choose Rotorua as the base of this on many levels. Obviously close to our high performance base and our national base in Cambridge. But generally there's other parts that are really crucial to success, which includes events. And I know Rotorua has really put a stake in the ground and doing some phenomenal work in that event space, and behind the scenes we're quietly supporting that as well. So there's a huge opportunity, and I think that, to Rob's point, partnership is exactly what we're looking for. I guess if you go back and probably look at some really crucial things that are important around the concepts around the likes of the hub, a big thing is young up-and-coming riders need to have opportunities and see opportunities. And at the moment, and in many sports, we see that all the time, that those who show some interest and talent don't know where to go and what the opportunity looks. We are having some success at the World Championship level. A reasonably local person, Sam Gaze, was the under-23 World Champion in cross-country only a matter of days ago. The reason I mention him is in relation to opportunity. He was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time with the right coach and the right opportunities. But how many other kids are sitting there that don't have the opportunities or recognise the pathways? And I guess that's exactly what we're trying to do here, is provide that visibility of the opportunity. And if we do that, how many other SAMs or equivalents are sitting around the country or even within the region that just don't know what the next step could be? And with that visibility, I think we see some significant opportunity. And I guess back to the Rowing New Zealand opportunity, that's exactly what that was. The setting up of infrastructure for the next tier down, so they genuinely see the opportunity and what the next step will look like. And in closing for me, I think there's other quiet work that Cycling New Zealand's doing to build all the connectivity that we have throughout the cycling community. We're currently working really closely with New Zealand School Cycling, of which there are a number of mountain bike events within that. to build a really strong partnership in the delivery of events so we can really grow our school's footprint across all our codes that then filter beautifully into the elements of hubs. So again, thanks for the opportunity and very happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It's been very clear. We now have, first of all, the Mayor, Steve.
Well, I can only say, no mai, haere mai. That is phenomenal news. And it actually links up with us about both the destination, spa, health and wellness, and great outdoor places. But I want to congratulate Waiariki too for showing, the links, because that's perfect partnering. And that's what we've been waiting for. So it's more than just events. It's adding around the events in a great destination. I think it's fantastic. The only comment that I'd make is we've got another facility here, which is Queen Elizabeth, for rehabilitation. And I think there's an ideal opportunity to bring in that rehabilitation to superb athletes with the link with the geothermal. And so that's something that you'd know about at Waiariki, but we can get some real synergies here about ongoing education and employment for our kids, but also building up that high performance skills. So it's just music to our ears, and thank you to Cycling New Zealand, and this is fantastic news for us.
Councillor Sturt.
To echo Her Worship Mayor's comments, and one of the things that I'm delighted with was, Rob, that 6 years ago you came to the same room and put the biggie mat out for support for the Avanti drone, and I think this council was one of the few councils in New Zealand that actually came to the party, and I think it was 250,000, something like that. And we sort of stuck out on our own because we could see regionally what the opportunities were. And we've seen our local people like Julia Edward and the benefit she's got from what's happened at Karapiro. We've seen what's happened with the Magic Netball team, the Chiefs rugby people. So there was a regional aspect to having it in the Waipa district, which was fantastic. But one of the things, like Her Worship, I'm delighted with Paul, is Waiariki stepping forward and being a partner in this process, because I think this is a start of a lot of things, not only with mountain biking and cycling New Zealand, but there are opportunities with other aspects of our community as well in the sport and recreation area. So I just want to say, Rob, thanks for sticking with Cycling New Zealand. You could have gone off to other things, and I hope that you're as successful with what you did for the Avanti drone and your leadership there, and Cycling New Zealand's leadership, so that we can have that reflected in Rotorua. So I just, on behalf of the community, and Her Worship joins me in just thanking you for the vision that you've had and your faith in Rotorua. And to our staff, I know Rob and the team have been doing a great job in liaising with these guys. I caught up with Rob at our professionals conference. He was our guest speaker, and I said to him, are you still involved with Cycling New Zealand? He said, yes, I'm talking with Rob Piketty at the moment, and it just showed that those linkages were going on behind the scenes, that were still active because of the faith that we put as a council in the Waipa thing, and the spin-offs are now coming to us, and we're delighted for that. So thank you, gentlemen, and all the best at Rio, Rob. We want 23 medals, I think it is. No pressure.
Mr. Waru.
And push the button again. Thank you very much for those kind words. And somewhere in the notes, one of the first things I meant to say was wearing a separate hat, as I've been on the Home of Cycling Charitable Trust, obviously separate from Cycling New Zealand. We were incredibly grateful for the support that the Lakes Council showed the Home of Cycling, enabling that to happen. Every single piece of support mattered, and what has gone on to become a great success. So I regret not saying that at the start. That was certainly at the front of my mind, but we're very, very grateful for what you did. Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair, through you. Thanks, guys. Sounds great. It's awesome. Just got a couple of questions. Speaking of partnerships and all that going forward, as you might not be aware of, or some of you might be aware of, we've got a partnership here now with Te Arawa and the council. Just wondering, has there been any thought to iwi playing a part in partnering up with this project? Because I've got a fairly big whānau that are keen on these paikara thing. My nephew Tūhoto Ariki and all that. Pene whānau, so that's the first question, and then the second one was the two options that you put here in the report, page 33 of the report here is, there's a do nothing one, and there's a straight grant from operational budget and reduced funding to CCO. Are those the only options on the table, or are there others that you think?
That we've suggested, which is the the funding from portfolios and operational areas to start with, and a relationship with the new CCO that Cycling New Zealand's going to develop to offset some of those costs, actually provides a mechanism to Cycling New Zealand that the more they can direct through those relationships, the stronger that partnership actually gets. The more that goes through the eyesight, the more that happens with business development, until a point actually that it's exceeding the level that we're suggesting we fund them. So the idea is that certainly by the end of the 4-year period, the relationship the council has with Cycling New Zealand will be generating more than what we've initially been indicating to give them to the start. So it helps that partnership approach.
Tēnā koe. And just 2 points of clarification. Wairiki, is it Wairiki Polytech, Wairiki Bay of Plenty Polytech, or Toi Oho Mai Institute of Technology? The second one is cycling set up there in Cambridge. There was mention of that. Did I hear correctly that you want to set it back up here in Rotorua and leave Cambridge, or is it just another branch? Kia ora. So, it makes the, sweet in the pot, I reckon. Would be great.
I'll answer your first question, and that is, yes, the institution is currently called Wairiki Bay Plenty Polytechnic. That is actually an interim name, and Toi Oho Mai is still actually the preferred name for the joint institution going forward. That is yet to be endorsed and ratified by the Minister, but yes, at the moment we are still operating under that banner. So it's just seen as doing that. Also just mentioning in terms of previous comments around this council's investment in the Cycle NZ, I also sit on the board of Sport Bay of Plenty, and so it's, I know we sat on the boundary in terms of actually where the commitment was, and we're struggling to lobby other regional councils and city council and the Bay of Plenty District Council to actually have a view over the hill as to what the cycle centre was, and this council actually demonstrated that, and so that was actually good to see that support, and from my point of view is actually a testimony to the support of sport that we all know is actually good for good development, and actually trying to engage both youth, young and old, in whatever persuasion.
Thanks. And I might just answer your question there about consultation with iwi. So we've had various discussions along the way, and have enjoyed meeting a lot of people over the last year, actually. Specifically with Alamoti Te Pou from Central North Island iwi. I have had a couple of good discussions and presented to him. He's put the concept to his board, who have noted what we're doing, and there's an appetite to have further discussion around what the benefits could be and partnering together and any opportunities that may exist. Also had
the Advantage Roman, and actually we got the title Mountain Bike Centre of Excellence pretty cheaply, because we contributed $100,000 to a $30+ million facility. We did undertake to put some infrastructure in at Waipa, a $500,000 toilet block, and that has had wider benefits certainly for that, the whole growth of the culture of mountain bike in Rotorua. And aside from the other comments with that I could have made with my economic development hat on what I've seen happen in Cambridge, which could be replicated here by this initiative in terms of sports medicine and gym and physio professionals moving to Rotorua to service the growth and the vibrancy that will come to our mountain biking community from this. There has been, and Malcolm will bear me out here, a grassroots call for Cycling New Zealand to get into this space and to actually live the Mountain Bike Centre of Excellence. What did that brand mean? And so nowhere greater in the New Zealand mountain biking community has that call come from anywhere than Rotorua. Malcolm previously was on the board of Mountain Bike New Zealand as treasurer, and the current president, Gil Peters, is a Rotorua person, and they have been on the case of Cycling New Zealand to say, come on guys, there are young athletes who want to aspire to not just the Olympic discipline of cross country, but the other disciplines of mountain biking, downhill, enduro, and so forth, and have huge potential. And you know, Sam Gaze, who cleaned out Xterra here in April with an amazing time, is just one example of an athlete who's grown in the Rotorua and Waikato region. So the call is very strong from the mountain biking community and the grassroots mountain biking culture in Rotorua for this type of facility to come to pass. And so thanks for bringing it to us, and I fully support it.
Councillor Gould.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for your presentation today. As a councillor, I think recommendation number 2, item number 2, the 4-year partnership is too short. It should be longer. And I still think that the 50k is probably not enough. And I think we could offer council services in kind to add to it. And is it inflation adjusted? And I'd also like to point out that the Hawke's Bay area at the moment are looking at putting a velodrome there. We should be very careful about that. We need to grab this as quickly as possible, take it and run with it.
Well, that's a very kind offer, Councillor Gould. Now that's just a minute, Councillor Gould. Before you go on, I would just like to point out to my fellow councillors, this is a very thorough report that has been developed up by staff. It's given us information that I think that most of us can base a solid decision on. So I think at this point in time, even though you're being very generous, we haven't got a paper to support it. So I think for now, I would be more comfortable if we stayed with what we've got in front of us. But I will hear your next question.
Other comment is that, are you looking at the medical side and also the diet side? Because getting the athletes the right diet is going to help them improve a lot better and probably win Olympic medals.
More than happy to answer that question. I guess we know from early age, if we educate people well, doesn't matter what industry or where they're coming from, you educate them well with the basic skills and knowledge, they're going to be successful later on. So a lot of what we do is around the holistic nature of the athlete, whether it be nutrition, sports psych, stretching, all the critical elements that enable an athlete over time to get better and better. So the critical part of our development program for our athletes, without doubt.
And thank you very much for your time. Oh, I didn't have my mic on. Sorry about that. I won't repeat myself. At the moment now, I'm happy to put recommendation 2, number 2, that the committee recommends to council. Just a minute, please, councillors. I read it out for the benefit of our online viewers who can't see the PowerPoint. That the committee recommends to council to enter into a 4-year partnership agreement with Cycling New Zealand to establish the Mountain MTB National Performance Hub. Moved Councillor Sturt, seconded Councillor Maxwell. All in favour, please say aye. Against? I'll just finish putting the motion. A question of clarification.
On page 33, the grant from operational budgets, I'm totally in agreement with the motion. I'm not opposed. I'm just wishing to have a bit of clarification. From operational budgets and reduced funding to the CCO, I presume that's Grow Rotorua?
Yes.
That's Grow Rotorua. And how will that be proportioned? Is it going to be 50-50? And where do you think from operational grants, and it would be a question that would have to come from staff, what portion of operational grants? Where is it going to come from? What sector?
It's explained reasonably well on page 34, I thought. The next page, it's got it there. I thought it was reasonably well covered there. Did you want to highlight that, Rob?
Madam Chair, I can probably add to this. One of the options, and it probably goes back to a previous question, we did have a third option initially, which was to look at our trading relationship through the eyesight around events and through Cycling New Zealand's the sort of the potential sale around packages through the eyesight. So that's one of the areas that we need to talk in more detail with the CCO. At this stage, for clarity, we wanted to be clear that this was a 4-year agreement and it would be coming from our current council operational budgets between sport and recreation and strategy, but we would then open up the conversation with the new CCO as to ongoing funding based on the relationship and the commercial relationship with Cycling New Zealand. So at this stage, the budget is coming from the sport and recreation and the strategy teams.
Okay. All right. So I'll finish putting the motion. All of those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right.
I'd like to go and shake everyone's. I would like to go and shake everyone's hands. I know you're busy, but thank you very much for your wonderful support. This is really exciting. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And we're going to take a 10-minute break so you can shake a few people's hands if you want to. All right.